The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Adventures and ways to get kicked off the radio. Well, the podcast, whatever. Good evening, afternoon, whenever you're listening, everybody, and welcome as the Kickoff presents the greatest of all teams, part 1 of 8. Okay, we kind of lied. We're going to do these division by division instead of doing 2 divisions at once, just because we're also going to hit you guys up with the news and notes of the week in the NFL and college football as well. I am your host. My name is Harry Broadhurst. Joining me, as per usual, the producer turned co-host, Erik Watkins.
I think Jason's taking the part owner thing a little bit too seriously.
The co-host turned producer, Brandon Biskobing. Erik, you suck.
Stop! Why are you confusing the listeners, Harry? Why are you changing your mind all the time? Stop flip-flopping.
What are you talking about?
You know exactly what I'm talking about. First you say one thing one week, then you say another thing another week.
I genuinely have no idea what you're talking about.
Last week you said we were going to do it both conferences.
That.
Yes,
yeah,
that.
Well, to steal a line from our truth, this one's on me. My bad, y'all. And the not-so-silent co-owner of the W2M Network, Jason Teasley.
I just own part of you guys. The only part that matters.
I'm going to, once again, repeat a line I've used many times on this show. I cannot be bought. I can, however, be rented.
And rent is cheap.
I could make a really bad joke right now, but I won't.
I could make a worse one right now.
Well, you and I are probably thinking along the same lines.
All right, allow me to say this then. Family show! Went out of the way early this week.
Yeah, for the first time ever, Bisco got involved in one. The circle is complete.
I think this officially means the world is coming to an end. Snow in New York in May, and I'm getting a family show. And all other craziness that's going on in the world.
Release the murder hornets.
Yes, that too.
Did you guys see what's in store for June? It's Gator Grizzlies.
Yeah,
I did see. Our chainsaw bears.
I did see the a meme of it was from Rise of the Planet of the Apes. It says, "So have they? Are we early or have they already surpassed the murder hornet test?"
Somewhere the University of Montana mascot and the University of Florida mascot are going to get together and shit's going to get real. All right, so before we get started onto the actual portion of our show this evening, in honor of National Nurses Week, Erik, the floor is yours.
Well, let me give you a little story time with Uncle Squid here. It was just yesterday. I took my mom. She was concerned, of course, being a little bit older, so we set up to go get her tested for COVID-19. We had all the information set up. That whole process was a breeze. We spoke to a very nice nurse based out of Rochester, Minnesota. Very sweet, very friendly. When we got there, it was a little bit of a maze going through the campus, but thankfully there were signs. We got through all the layers of security, 3 of them, had all the info, they called everything in, set everything up, it was great. No contact, the nurses there, they were well protected, thankfully they had PPE, everything. We took the proper precautions on our end, wore our masks, everything was good. Got the results back today. Huge relief, she was negative. So, with all of this, I had been thinking, Now, first of all, getting the results back that quickly, I don't know if it helped or not that Mom herself is a retired nurse, but with everything, she'd been in the nursing field for nearly 50 years before I finally talked her into retiring. She was an RN for just over 30, and we're talking everything. ER, critical care, intensive care, the works. You name it, she spent time in that department. I would either pick her up from work or she would come home early in the morning as she worked nights. She would talk about some of her things at work, what she went through, and I'm seeing all the commercials and all of these stories and what nurses are going through now, and I've got to tell you personally, to me, it is nothing less than absolutely amazing. And not only in my eyes, but I can speak for everybody else on this podcast and all of our eyes, these are the sacrifices that are going to be remembered the most when all is said and done. For all of this, to all the nurses who took care of my mom through every visit, every doctor's appointment, every checkup, all of your nurses out there right now helping these patients, helping their families, keeping these connections going, thank you. You're the ones on the front lines, much as anybody. You're right alongside with the doctors, sometimes even more than the doctors. Every flag, every mural, every sign, every bouquet of flowers, every flyover, which we're going to get from the Blue Angels here tomorrow, everything, you've more than earned it, hands down. And I just want to tell everybody, there is this saying, not all heroes wear capes. And this is absolutely true. Because a lot of them wear scrubs. A belated Happy Nurses Day, it was yesterday, and to all of you, a very happy and thankful Nurses.
Here's the deal. We're just four idiots doing a football podcast that more often than not isn't always about football. We're having fun doing this. This is our escape from reality. And the scary thing is the reality we're trying to escape from is nothing compared to the reality they're facing every single day during this. You guys are doing the good work. You guys are out there putting yourselves on the line and making yourselves available, in some cases, for people who are seeing their final days. None of us can imagine what you are going through. None of us would want to imagine what you are going through. I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but you're willing to do it because it's what you signed up for when you wanted to be a nurse in the first place. Thank you. God bless. And my best wishes to you all.
Yep, definitely.
Remember, go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, definitely agree. And I'll say a couple of things as well. First off, Erik, yes, not all heroes wear capes, but these heroes do wear masks. Unfortunately, right now. But also, how did she say the test was? Because I've seen videos and stories of how horrible that test is.
It's invasive.
For her, it was actually pretty easy since it was the swab. They did go up and they turned it a little bit, but she really no complaints on her end.
Yeah, because I've heard that they stick it way up your nose.
But, yeah.
All right, hold on, Brandon. You just talked all over him while he was responding, so I didn't hear either of you.
Go ahead, Erik.
No, I was saying that the kind of the swabs that they used weren't quite what some people would call the brain tickler, but it was still very effective. Went in, turned it a bit, came out, and everything still got what they needed. So that was an extra blessing in all of it.
Yeah, that's very good. And then one final thing, I hope that, and this time every team can do it, when we do eventually get baseball back, whether it's, sometime this year or if it's not until next year, they need to, at least for the first game, if not for the first couple of games, maybe for the first week or week and a half or what have you, they need to have different nurses and doctors from different hospitals in each area throw out the first pitch at every game.
Jason, you have former EMT experience, so you're probably the closest to the four of us on this line here.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, my history goes through being a first responder as an EMT, and I worked alongside some wonderful nurses when I was an ER tech in Kentucky. And, nurses, or as us EMTs call them, doctor helpers, they don't really get the credit that they really deserve most times. And they go through a lot. It's seeing it firsthand. It is a lot of mental anguish, and I don't like to throw PTSD around, but working in the medical field, you do develop a form of PTSD because it is not a lie. You usually see people on the worst day of their life working in either on an ambulance or in an ER setting. So, yeah, to all my friends that are nurses that may happen to listen to this, or especially, I know that I have a very special nurse in Nashville, Tennessee, and my cousin Sam that may also listen to this. I want to say thank you to all the nurses out there, and, you guys are finally getting the respect that you rightfully deserve, even though it's at one of the country's most trying times.
To put it as simple as this, nurses, video chat here, gentlemen, salute them.
Yeah, I know a couple of nurses myself from my time at Seton Hall. It was a big nursing school, so hope everyone's staying safe and everything.
Yeah, we're staying at home doing this podcast for you because you all are still working for us.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so with that being said now, and for more information about how you can reach out to help, make sure you guys check the various online sources. I'm sure there are plenty of options available. I'm sure there's got to be nursing dedicated charities out there to look for. If you want me to, Erik, do me a favor. Once we wrap up this episode, help me look up a couple. We'll attach a couple of noteworthy nurses charities to the episode link, so that we can put it out there in case people want to donate or anything. But all right, so to bring the mood back up to where we usually are here on the Kickoff, let's get started with our traditional part of the show here. And for this greatest of all teams, I've decided that we're going to kind of do a split format for this show. We're going to have one part of the show where we focus on our greatest of all teams, and that'll be how we close each show every week. Are you trying to get my attention, Erik?
No.
Are you tapping something on your tablet?
Tapping something on my phone.
Okay, just making sure. So what we're going to do is we're going to close with the greatest of all teams discussion here, where we'll each reveal our players from each division that we chose, and then debate as far as who goes where and which player actually represents that team on our overall list. We're going to open the conversation about football every week with news and notes, kind of are similar to our So That Happened that we would traditionally do during the regular season. And since Jason brought this to our attention, Jason, I'll let So That Happened on this instance start with you and the quarterbacks, both signed and unsigned.
All right. Well, I'll kick us off here. You see what I did there.
Do we have a rib shot sound effect, Bisco?
Unfortunately, no.
Don't even say it, Erik. Stop. Let's get into this. All right. So, on news and notes front, we did have a particular veteran quarterback going back to his Texas roots, as well as a quarterback who was once a highly touted offensive weapon, stating that he's going to accept a role of a backup if he could sign anywhere. with that being said, yes, Andy Dalton has went on and signed to become the soon-to-be starter, in my opinion, of the Dallas Cowboys, as well as Cam Newton, who is left unsigned at this moment, has started sending fillers out that say that he would accept a backup role if a team is interested in him. I think this brings up a really interesting thing, especially among us here at the W2M network, because we all like to bust Sean's balls over it. But it's the fact that Dak Prescott was given the franchise tag, but yet has yet to sign it, which makes the signing of Andy Dalton a little bit more polarizing, because he now becomes a front runner to become a starter if Dak wants to play the holdout game. So I think it was a very, very proactive and strategic move on Jerry Jones's part. And, you know, being a Giants fan, I never give Jerry Jones credit. So what do you guys think? And we'll start with Harry. What do you guys think about Dak not signing and then Dalton coming in, and then what Cam has said?
I have a friend of mine, Facebook friend of mine that I went to high school with. Her name is Talissa. She's a very big Dallas Cowboy fan. And she was saying that she feels Dallas will be a lot better this year than they were last year because of the whole Mike McCarthy influence. And my exact response to her is McCarthy will make that team better. I am a firm believer in McCarthy. He's turned teams around before. I think that you guys have a better chance to win with Dalton than you do with Prescott in your offense, though. And if Dalton does become the day one starter in Dallas, excuse me, I feel like
got the Rona.
Damn it! I wasn't gonna say it.
Apologies. Bat swallow on my crackers. All right.
That's
Jason.
What they all say.
Shut up, Jason. I see that look. All right. Anyway, I think Dalton fits the Dallas system better than Prescott does at this point, because you have wide receivers that I think that Dalton would be able to get the ball to better, and you have a running back who I think Dalton's going to be less likely to hold on to the ball for too long, whereas Prescott's more likely to take off, and I don't think it suits him having Elliott in the backfield. So realistically speaking, 1 year, $7 million, and only 3 of it's guaranteed. It's a steal for Dallas for Andy Dalton. Erik.
Personally, I thought it was smart. They didn't really see the development in Cooper Rush as a backup like they thought. So, like Jerry Jones has done in recent history, I mean, let's not forget he did sign Drew Bledsoe and was willing to go to veteran guys. You have a Texas man going ahead and running this Texas team. And again, you know what Andy Dalton is, both with and without help. Is he a little bit of a step back from Dak Prescott? Maybe. I would say at most a half a step. But you're saying, okay, if this doesn't work out with Dak, if we do wind up having to pay too much money, then guess what? See what Andy can do. And if he's the guy, we can sign him to another shorter-term contract, maybe 2 years, while we go ahead and we draft a quarterback. So I like the play, and if I'm Dak, I'm starting to sweat a little bit.
Well, and you got to look. Next year's draft class is extremely deep at quarterback as well, so that also factors in.
Mm-hmm.
Bisco, your thoughts on Prescott, Dalton, and Dallas?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with Erik. I think one thing I'll disagree with Erik a little bit on is, yes, Dalton has never been one of the top quarterbacks in the league or anything like that, but we've also never really seen him with a top-notch offense around him. Yes, he's had pieces around him, but he's never really had that dynamic offense overall that can support him. Now in Dallas, if given the opportunity, I think Dalton could be a very dangerous quarterback with those weapons. So I think it's definitely a good move on Dallas's part. I know it's shocking. 2 Giants fans saying that, giving props to Dallas. What kind of world are we living in right now?
Well, not to mention, too, let's think about this from another perspective. Really, Jason had to go to the Crackers? He can't hear me. His headphones aren't on yet. I'll repeat so he can't hear me. Really, Jason, going to the Crackers?
Yeah, I got animal crackers.
For those who are wondering, we're doing a video chat while we're doing the podcast. That way we try not to talk over each other. But anyway, to what Brandon just said, though, yeah, I would say that Cooper and A.J. Green are probably about a wash in terms of a number 1 wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that Gallup is at least as good as any other weapon that he ever had in Cincinnati as a number 2. He's got CeeDee Lamb coming in out of Oklahoma as well, who will have time to bond with if he does become the starter before the season starts. Plus, I can guarantee they never had a running back like Ezekiel Elliott.
I mean, the only one that I could even compare him a little bit to was Mixon, and that's a bit of a stretch to say he's as good as Elliott is.
Well, you got a good 1-2 punch with Cooper and Gallup with the addition through the draft this year.
Better a 1-2 punch at wide receiver than a 1-2 punch and a 3 punch even at running back.
Yeah, and I look for Dallas to maybe make a sneaky move right before the season starts, and I look for Dallas to add a upper tier tight end. 2 that come to mind that would be ideal. Both came out was in the same draft class, which is O.J. Howard in Tampa Bay and Dave Njoku in Cleveland.
I could definitely see O.J. Howard running out of Tampa Bay now that Gronkowski's there if he takes away any of his playing time.
Easily.
Now, I have an interesting question for you guys. Do you think at any point if Dak starts to struggle, assuming he does start the season, if he starts to struggle, do we start hearing Dalton chants?
Absolutely. Yes. Dallas fans are fickle.
And with someone like Mike McCarthy willing to pull the trigger, he would.
And the fact that Jerry Jones don't shell out money for players that he doesn't have some sort of interest in. So therefore, I think Dalton has I think Prescott is on a much shorter leash than what he was. If you guys remember, I actually picked Love to go to Dallas and become the heir apparent in Dallas, which would have been phenomenal. But I understand why Dallas did what they did at their draft position. But also, you also got to look, like I said, Dave Njoku, who is in Cleveland, who just signed Austin. Austin is it Hooper?
Hooper. Indianapolis.
No, from Atlanta.
Oh yeah, he's from Atlanta.
Yeah, he was in Atlanta, and he just went up. Yeah, he just went up, so that makes him expendable, and he is coming off injury, so Cleveland may want to try to move him to free up some cap space as well as some capital down the line. So I think that that offense is missing right now is a leader, because I do not think that Dak is a leader. I think Dak is a solid middle of the road quarterback. I went on record. I can name 15 people that I would love to have over Dak to build a franchise around. But with that being said, I think they are a solid tight end away from actually going to the Super Bowl. I think that that's their only glaring offensive hole that they have is a solid shorthand tight end that could run a short to intermediate route just to help move change and be a check down for their quarterback.
I think this is the thing that would be disappointing for Dallas, too, is the fact that Witten decided to retire once again here, because I think Jason Witten would have been perfect as a guy in this offense.
Witten is the Raiders. Witten went to the Raiders.
He's in Vegas now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I thought Witten retired again.
No, he went
Nope,
to
he
Vegas.
went to Vegas.
I guess he'd had 1 year too much of Jerry Jones.
Hmm.
All right, what about the other quarterback that you had to discuss as well? You briefly mentioned it here, but we might as well bring it to discussion. Erik, hypothetically
Yeah.
speaking, you have the talent personnel job in Jacksonville. Are you taking a chance on Cam Newton?
Oh, if this was an offense like we had last year, not under Jay Gruden, I would say yes. With Jay Gruden and his system, I'm honestly not too sure. Now, would I at least try to take a flyer on any sort of an upgrade above Gardner Minshew? Yes, just to see in case. But I think with the quarterbacks we have on the roster, especially with Josh Dobbs, I like him with being a little bit lighter, still as fleet of foot, now more so than Newton because of the various injuries. I think, honestly, it's a year too late. Even though we're young at receiver, we're finally starting to rebuild and upgrade at that spot. We're keeping Fournette because, well, it was a failure trying to get rid of him. I don't see him working in our system.
Jason, you have the player personnel job in New York. Do you want to take a flyer on Cam Newton as a backup for Daniel Jones? You're muted, Jason.
Still muted. And
There you go.
All right.
Right
All
now.
right. All right. No, I don't think I would bring him in as a backup in New York because he is a high prolific player. If Jones struggled the least, you'd start hearing fans become belligerent wanting Cam in. Honestly, this is going to sound crazy. If he was to be a backup, a great backup place for him to land, in my opinion, would be Seattle. Team him with Russell Wilson. They have similar styles, so the offense would not have something, tragic happened to Wilson and he went down or missed a game or something. They have similar styles, so your offensive game plan wouldn't really change very much. So I think that would be a great fit if he did go into a backup role, is somewhere that has a quarterback style similar to what he's used to, so your offensive scheme doesn't have to change as much as it would bringing his style into an offense, say, such as San Francisco or even New York, because, somewhere that doesn't – you want him to go where he can be a gunslinger that has adequate receivers but doesn't have that premier running back that teams would lean on to go forward. Also, I could see him going to somewhere and mentoring someone like Deshaun Watson or a Lamar Jackson. I think those are all possibilities. I see him landing with a team that has a similar quarterback style, so that offense doesn't suffer in case their starter went down.
Didn't Baltimore already do that with?
Oh, go ahead, Brandon.
Didn't Baltimore already do that with RG3 last year?
And that's exactly what I was saying. Seattle and Houston, I can agree, but with Baltimore having RG3, they're pretty much set, and there's no need to have three quarterbacks with that kind of a style.
But RG3, who would you rather have, Cam or RG3?
Oh, definitely Cam, but really?
Given what you're probably paying for, given what you're probably going to pay for both of them, RG3.
That's true. Okay, yeah.
I would take Cam.
Overall, I would take Cam, but in terms of best bang for your buck, I would take RG3 probably.
All right, then let me ask you, Brandon. Would you want Cam as a backup with the Giants as well?
No, and here's the reason why. he's not. The Giants are not a system of offense that is conducive to Cam's style. Now, granted, and obviously everything that's been going on hurts him in this respect, but we don't know exactly how healthy he is. We don't know whether he's still going to be as prolific a runner as he has been in the past, and whether or not he's still able to run that college option style offense that he has in the past. But assuming that he is, I think the best landing spot for him is a place that either A, already does run a similar offense like Houston, like Seattle, like we mentioned, or a place that either runs it already, and really the only team that I can really think of that does this is in New Orleans, and they already have a couple of the guys that can do this, or an offense, or a team that is willing to implement this sort of offense, and it would be hard this late in the game, but basically use him as kind of a wildcat quarterback type, where if you want to give your team a little bit more of a variety and that unpredictability, you bring him in for a couple of plays or a drive or what have you, as a way to fool the defense and to also give your starter a little bit of a rest if needed.
See, the question was posed on Buffalo Rumblings, which is the Bills USA Today sponsored page. I follow it on Facebook in order to talk to other Bills fans and kind of get the pulse of Bills Nation. And one of the questions that was asked there is, would you want Cam Newton as a Buffalo Bill? And a lot of people said no. I was one of those people who said no. And I said no for the exact same reason Jason said no. Because Josh Allen is a young quarterback who having Cam Newton on the roster would put pressure that doesn't need to be on him.
And that, I agree with Jason as well there. And I think, unfortunately, Cam Newton, for a number of similar reasons, but that reason in particular, he is going to get the Tim Tebow treatment where it's like, why are we willing to take this much of a risk having this popular of a quarterback on our team to be a backup and risk having that fan revolt? Now, granted, this year has a little twist to it though, because if it does turn out that they are playing in empty stadiums this year, teams may be more willing to take that chance because they don't have to deal with the direct repercussions of a mediocre season. So that may be something that may play in Cam's favor.
I don't know if I agree with that, because I think that the backlash would still be there. It would just be more social rather than in person.
But in that scenario, I think, and this is just me thinking just purely, on a mental and emotional level, I don't think owners would care as much about social media reaction and, radio talk show reactions and stuff like that from fans as they would hearing an entire stadium chanting for Cam.
That's fair. And not to mention, too, that you wouldn't have the backlash of the audience booing or anything.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Exactly.
To make a change. But, all right, let's continue on with our news and notes section here. And you have something else, Erik?
Am I the only one that thinks that page has missed something entirely by not being named Circle of Wagons?
I think the Bills actually own the copyright to that.
If it's a Buffalo Bills, like the page and stuff,
but it's through USA Today, not NFL team affiliated.
Oh, work together, somehow have a thing going. Just saying.
Yes, Jason.
I just want to throw this out there. It just came across Football Guys that the possible landing spot for Cam Newton will be one of our teams.
Jacksonville?
Jacksonville, I'm guessing?
That is correct. It just came across.
I could see it.
Jacksonville is the front runner to land Newton as their backup.
You know, I need to shut up when I say things. As I said a couple of weeks ago, just watch. He's going to be the one that will sign. Thinking, no way that could pop.
If he signs with Jacksonville, he does not stay a backup for very long. Mark my words.
Erik, tonight I pour one out for your sanity.
Yeah. If anybody knows of any connections to acquire cannabis, please slide into my DMs.
All statements made by Erik Watkins do not necessarily reflect those of the W2M network. Legal variations do apply. His statements do apply in Colorado, though, I believe.
And all Washington, right. A few others.
Couple others, yeah. I mean, I don't know the specifics, but I know there's a few that have legalized it. All right, let's move on here. Erik, I feel this level of shenaniganing is right up your alley.
To an extent. I've never gone to the end result of this, though.
What?
Because granted.
All right, wait. Before we start, in the interest of not getting sued...
What the...
In the interest of not getting sued, I have to say that this is all allegedly what happened.
Yeah, and I mean, let's just say, I have my experience, a fair share of it, with hotel rooms. I know what goes on in there. I happen to know that things can occur between two, or in some of my cases, more than two consenting adults. However, there is typically some level of discretion, even when video cameras are involved. Everyone's got to understand that. Apparently, with that level of discretion or lack thereof, Earl Thomas III didn't anticipate certain consequences, especially because he's married, especially because his wife discovered these things. And again, as Harry mentioned, there was a conversation, things escalated. Allegedly, there was allegedly a conversation. Allegedly, things escalated. Allegedly, she had a gun. Allegedly, said gun was pointed at him.
That's why said gun was pointed at him, shall we? Who boy?
Well, when you are allegedly engaging in certain congresses outside of the bounds of your marriage, and this is discovered, that leads to problems.
All right, so let's go ahead and try to be as discreet as we can when discussing this here, because I know we tend to get a little crass on occasion here on the show, but this is going to be one of those ones we kind of have to tiptoe around, because I'm not trying to get sued for libel. The rumors and allegations are that Earl Thomas's wife, Nina Thomas, pulled a gun on him and held him at gunpoint when she walked in on Earl and his brother tag teaming a woman.
Tag team, back again. Check your rectum. Let's begin.
The views and opinions of Jason Teasley, unfortunately, do reflect those of the W2M network, and therefore we're probably all going to be out of a job soon. Anyway, in all sincerity, though,
we're safe. I own the kickoff. We're safe.
Here's all I'm going to say about this, because realistically speaking, what's done in people's personal lives is really none of our business.
Unless it happens to be on ManyVids or Pornhub or XTube or AVN servers or OnlyFans.
Family show!
He was just about to go and list off every single site he could think of.
Well, I can't. We would be here an extra half an hour.
True.
We're already running long off of the Cam Newton Andy Dalton discussion. Let's get back to this here. All right, so What's done inside of the bounds of somebody's marriage is their discretion. What's done outside of the bounds of marriage is traditionally their discretion until it becomes a criminal matter, and then people are going to discuss it. Because when you are a celebrity, like Earl Thomas is a celebrity, one of the best safeties in the NFL, and something like this comes out, I assure you, Mr. Thomas, people are going to discuss it.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my thing. What you do in the privacy of your own bedroom is your decision. One, I don't have a brother. If I did, I damn sure wouldn't be doing that. Two, I'm a marriage is sacred kind of person.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, for me, it wouldn't have been an issue in the first place. Three, I don't care how pissed off you are at him. Leave his ass and take his money. Pulling a gun on him, Nina, it's about the dumbest damn thing you could have done.
Because now she'll probably have problems on that level that you're speaking of.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Erik. Don't they have children together?
I do not believe so. I've not heard about it. I'd have to do some research.
Man, he should have just Ray Riced her.
I don't know. I mean,
if you're trying to get us a sponsorship, we can't say that.
and technically, if you're looking at that situation, he would have been at a disadvantage.
Hold on.
She goes Lorena Bobbitt, except worse.
My wife
shot.
I'm just saying, my wife pulled a gun on me. It's a level playing field. I will go Braun Strowman on her, and she will catch some hands. It might not be my hands. It might be I might throw a puppy or something at her. But I won't get up out there real quick.
Well, last time I checked, the bullet's faster than giving a two-piece. So,
well, I mean, she's that close. I mean, if the reports are, she was like point blank range,
holding a gun to his head.
Yeah, I mean, physics is a hell of a drug. But if you're at point blank range, the reaction time is about the same. She's not going to be in the mental state and have the reaction time to pull a trigger before he can make a reaction to get out of said way. Allegedly.
I'm just trying to keep us from getting sued.
Hey, we're for Jesus and Marrow. We can't sprinkle allegedlys and stuff from our fingers, so we're doing our best.
Bisko, your thoughts on the whole situation?
You be dumb. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, I mean,
because I completely agree with you, Harry. He put it on himself, allegedly.
Well, I mean, you got to look at this. Like Harry said, you're in the public eye. One, you got to look at this two ways, and I'm going to be serious for a minute, Lance Storm style. But on one hand, do you like half your stuff missing? On the other hand, do you want to pay a settlement for allegations? Because you are in the public eye. You're going to take a hit either way. Because you are a celebrity, people know you have money. They are going to want said money. So it's either going to be hush money on one of two fronts. So I mean, I don't believe in stuff like that. But, you can do what you got to do. And, there might be, like I said, there could be a ton of information that we don't know. You don't know what goes on in people's private lives. They could have, for all we know, they could have a understanding of an open relationship of some sort and be like into polygamy or something. Who knows? If they are, more power to them. Nobody knows. Nobody knows the real scenario. We get tidbits, we get stories spun to put a narrative where they want the narrative to be. So, only thing we can go on is what little information we have and try to draw our own conclusions and what narrative they want us to believe.
Let me just say this. I said he was dumb, but she's also dumb, too, for the reasons that Harry mentioned as well. Pulling the gun and everything, allegedly, that just leads you to, if you do now try to, file for divorce and get half his stuff, you're going to have a bit of a problem in court because of your, because your mental state is going to be brought into question. So, she could have just left his ass and then, it would have been done and she probably would have gotten half his stuff.
Yeah. My guess is due to the fact that she responded the way she did, there is no kind of an arrangement for an open marriage.
Yeah. No.
And like Bisco just said there, realistically, the smart thing would have been to hit him where it really hurt, and that would have been the pocketbook. Mm-hmm. Walk away from his ass and be done with it.
Yep.
Precisely. Go ahead, get a couple million, get a black card, get alimony, get whatever, and be on with it. Because knowing people who have been in polyamorous relationships and who have open marriages, if indiscretions occur like that with them, is it bad? Are there conversations? Yes. Are there weapons involved with those conversations?
No.
You're on mute again, Jason. I don't know why he keeps muting his microphone.
He doesn't want me to talk about the CFL. That's what it is.
Oh, I see what it is. He's making the motion that he's trying not to be caught chewing on microphone.
That is correct. No, I forgot what I was going to say.
That's okay. It's all right. We got to move on anyways. We can do that discussion next week, Erik, since we have 7 more weeks of shows to fill.
Yeah.
Will do.
All right. The other thing to discuss from today is the big thing for NFL fans for today, and that would be the fact that the 2020 NFL schedule was released today, Thursday, May. These days are running together. 7th?
Yep.
7th.
Thank you. So I just got, are you afraid of the dark lighting? Hold on, let me fix that real quick. Okay, there we go. And we were kind of talking back and forth about the schedule and stuff and about our teams and our ideas and our beliefs for the schedule itself. But I want to talk more so specifically about some of the ways that the NFL favors maybe certain teams and players. And the fact that Tampa Bay went from having 1 nationally televised game last year to having 7 this year.
Well,
hey,
I mean,
there's balance to this. I mean, right now, if Kirk Cousins were to decide to leave Minnesota, he could come right here to Jacksonville, and damn it, we'd be 15-1, steamrolling through everything. Just saying, Kirk, you love 1 o'clock games. We got all of them. Just throwing it out there.
You guys only have 1 national broadcast game this year?
Only 2. The 1 Thursday night game, which instead of against the Titans, it's against the Dolphins. And then out of that, our only other game outside of 1 o'clock, there's one at like 4:05, but the rest are just 1 p.m. kickoffs.
Well, the 4:05 one isn't even a national broadcast because it would have to be a 4:25.
Exactly. So that's why I said 15-1 easily.
As a Bills fan, I'm nervous. And the reason I'm nervous is because we have 5 nationally broadcast games this year. Buffalo had 4 nationally broadcast games last year due to flex scheduling. I was only able to watch 3 of them. Yeah, guess what our record was in the 3 that I watched?
0-3?
0-3.
Well, at least this year you can plan to have a special weekend absolutely ruined.
I mean, here's the thing about the Tampa Bay thing. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's all about ratings. And, they know that Brady is going to draw in ratings.
I don't disagree with that, but at the same time, I would think that there would be a little bit more balance in the way that the schedules are handed out. Like, I get that the networks want the Brady in New England story and the Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City with this defense of the Super Bowl champions and everything. But it could be that the national games were a little bit more evenly divided. I feel like this hurts your smaller market teams by not giving them the opportunity to have these national showcases.
I feel like I will say, and maybe between the three, all of them are, but I do feel like they should have a rule where every team has to be on national TV at least once a year.
Why do you think the Thursday games exist?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that is a rule. But at the same time, with as many national broadcasts as there are, I think it should be at least 2 games a year for every team.
Are there enough for 2?
Huh?
Are there enough for 2 per team?
Absolutely there are. You're looking at 3 national games a week times 17 weeks. That's 52. That's 51 games. That's 102 teams. It's a 32-team league.
Yeah.
32 times 2 is 64.
Yep.
Okay, well, riddle me this. Do you think that is going to be brought up knowing that the television contracts as they are going to be expiring soon?
I would have to think if you're a smaller market franchise like a Jacksonville, before Brady signed like a Tampa Bay, because let's be honest, that's one of the smaller markets. Like just the smaller ones that aren't focused on, like a Chicago, like a Minnesota that doesn't get a ton of primetime games.
Since when did Chicago become a small market?
Oh, okay, the owners are going to bring it up, but if you're trying to really get these networks money, especially those like CBS and Fox, because let's face it, they're your main 2. You really think it's like, well, if we have to deal with the ratings for these crap teams a little bit more often, we're not going to pay as much. That has to be a realistic argument.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that, but at the same time, those CBS and those Fox contracts that you're getting are the nationally broadcast Sunday games. You can still put the other teams in the out-of-focus games, the NBC game on Thursday or the Amazon game on Thursday. You probably want to
think NBC and ESPN are going to pay more. As is, we all know how bad ESPN has got shafted. Personally, I think that's still a modicum of revenge for playmakers. I loved that show, but it's like, hey, you're going to have to pay us a few hundred extra million, and you're going to have to deal with this.
I'd say ESPN got the best game of Wild Card Weekend last year.
By a teeny bit of dumb luck. No offense.
I'm still sad that we lost. Okay.
Hey, your record against AFC South teams on the road in the playoffs speaks for itself. Just have some sort of comfort and solace that you actually scored a touchdown this time. It's all about baby steps, Harry. Baby steps.
Well, the good news is if we play on Wild Card Weekend this year, we should be able to host a game because we are the prohibitive favorites in the East. Jason, you haven't said much about the schedule released. A, your thoughts on the Giants schedule. B, your thoughts on the national broadcast argument.
The Giants schedule is a fun one. It's going to be interesting. About as interesting as my animal crackers. About as bland as the giraffe I just ate. I plan to go to watch them in Cincinnati. I'm trying to get secure tickets to go to the Tampa Bay game.
Do we play some Lions and Bengals and Bears this year?
Oh my!
Why?
I know we play the Bears. I don't think we play the Lions this year. I know we play the Bears and Bengals, but I don't think I've seen the Lions on the schedule. I don't have it pulled up right.
Yeah, neither do I.
I can take a look at it, but the national broadcast, I really don't care. Just as long as there's football on TV, I don't care who's playing. I'd watch the Bengals play the Browns on a Monday night game I just really don't care. As long as there's football on my TV, I'm happy.
See, and I think that that's a lot more people's aspect of it than maybe the NFL wants to admit. Granted, some of the smaller market teams maybe don't do so well in the overnight ratings, but at the same time, I do think that there is a large group of people out there that are conditioned that if football's on, watch football.
Yeah.
Especially when you have some of the contingencies like they're building into the schedule, similar to what they did and what they had to scramble to do in 2001 and like they did in 2011. So the fact that the NFL is going to work hard to give you 17 weeks of regular season football and a full playoffs whenever that starts and stops. And by the way, Harry, Caesar Sportsbook came out. You're no longer the clear prohibitive favorite to win the AFC East.
You think the Patriots are going to go 6-10, Jason?
That's what Bleacher Report has them at. Bleacher Report just updated their predictions.
I have the ESPN one that I just clicked on. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to look at it when we go off air because it just came out right as we were starting the show with the updated predictions and stuff. So I'm going to look at that later. But it's something that we can definitely talk into season projections next week if you guys want to here in the news and notes section.
Yeah.
Given some of these win totals and how the odds are shifted, yes.
One thing I will say about the national schedule and all of that, this year especially, and as we go further into the summer, we'll see where we're at. But especially this year would have been the year to maybe put some of the smaller market teams on national TV earlier on in the schedule because fans are going to be itching so badly to just watch any sort of sports that I'm sure a lot of us, we watch every game that we can regardless. But I think a lot of fans that may not necessarily watch the national games if their team isn't on or a team that they want to watch isn't necessarily on, they may watch it anyway just because finally we have sports back again.
Also, real quick, as longtime listeners of the show will know, I'm going to go back to the point that Erik brought up, and screw you, Watkins. Last year, I made mention on the show, my girlfriend and I were supposed to watch the Bills and the Steelers game when it happened on Sunday, December 14th. That game then got flex scheduled into a Sunday night game. Christine works Mondays. We weren't able to watch the game last year. Well, guess what the NFL goes and does this year? Pittsburgh in Buffalo, a game that we were talking about going to, and they announce it as a Sunday night football game. You mother.
But see, it wasn't flexed.
At least
appointment months ahead of time.
Yes.
She's actually very strongly considering taking that Monday off work so we can still go to the game.
See, there you go. But see, now they'll flex. See, now they'll flex it out of the Sunday night, which will make it easier.
Vacation, all I ever want. All right, let's move on. Erik, you talked about the contingencies here. Let's real quick touch on those there. A February 7th date for the Super Bowl, which is earliest it's been in February in quite a while, but with contingency plans to move. Wait, wasn't it just like February 5th last year? Never mind. Forget what I'm saying.
Yeah, isn't it normally earlier? Yeah, this is one of the latest. Yeah. All
right, well, anyway. Regardless. Yeah, I know, right, Jason? What the indeed. Anyway. The February 7th date there, and they said that they were flexible on that February 7th date. In addition, their backup plan, in case bye weeks end up getting postponed, is that every team that was supposed to have their bye week would play the same team that they would have played on week 2. Like all week 2 opponents are scheduled to face each other. I'm making a mess out of this. Watkins, help me out here.
Okay. The teams that are facing each other in week 2 have the same bye week scheduled later in the season. And along with pushing back the February 7th date for the Super Bowl by weeks, if not months, whatever is necessary. The schedule is set to where any week can be used as opening week. Any games that would be postponed at the beginning of the season would be made up at the conclusion of week 17. And if on the worst case scenario, the NFL cannot complete a 16-game season, they have games to where there are no divisional games scheduled and a couple early weeks of the season. I believe it's 2 and 3 or either 3 and 4. Those 2 weeks without divisional games can be entirely scrapped. And for the first time since 1977, we could have a 14-week regular season. That part I do like just in case, because if we're looking at the Super Bowl in Vegas going up against March Madness or even bleeding into April, you don't necessarily want that dealing with things like ratings or attendance. So I like the fact that they introduced those extra safeguards.
Here's one thing I will say real quick. I definitely agree with you, Eric, but one thing I'll say about what you just said right there, if the NFL season is delayed, especially by that much, I highly doubt we're getting March Madness on time either.
Depending on what the NCAA does, because given their situation as far as what they're doing with athletes, and even for this upcoming football season, you've not only had conferences like the SEC and Big Ten saying, we'll go ahead and go forward independently. The fact that you've had Big Ten, ACC, and SEC schools, and a few others in the Power Five saying, we're going to be on track and we're going to get ready to open up facilities, I think the NCAA would be in a more precarious situation. Knowing with where they were at, they may not want to be so quick to take a step back.
All right, gentlemen. With that being said, we'll come back to the schedule next week when we talk win totals as well, I'm sure. And maybe we'll focus a little bit more time on like the win totals and everything and the updated predictions on like ESPN and Bleacher Report and all that stuff when we come into next week's episode of the show. For now, we do need to get to our feature presentation for this episode of the Kickoff, and that is the greatest of all teams. What we have decided to do, and we kind of talked about this the last 2 weeks, is we are going to choose an offensive and defensive player to represent every team. What we will then do is at the end of this, if you guys want to, we can pick one player to represent each division. And once we get the Facebook page set up, maybe put it out to vote for who each person thinks would be the best player from each conference as far as like with the divisional representatives. Just a way to expand this kind of conversation while there's no football to actually discuss.
Of course.
We'll talk about that more off air, but at the very least, we are going to give you guys 8 weeks of us picking the greatest of all teams, offensively and defensively for each team. We are going to start this week in the NFC North, which, as everybody knows, is Dallas, Philadelphia. Nah, I'm kidding. It was a callback to last week when I screwed that up. It's Chicago, Green Bay, Minnesota, and Detroit. I'm going to start with the obvious one here. We're going to start offensively in Detroit here because I think this is the one where we all agreed, although there were honorable mentions to be made. It was Barry for me, Erik.
Barry Sanders had to have been.
Brandon?
Yeah, Barry Sanders with a honorable mention for Calvin Johnson.
Jason?
Yes, I'm going to go with Matthew Stafford. Oh wait, no, Barry Sanders. I think that's pretty much a consensus.
Yeah. All right, so I mean, obviously, the NFL's all-time leading rusher when he retired, later passed by Emmitt Smith. Don't look at me like that. It's factually accurate. He was. He was either number 1 or 2nd to Eric Dickerson.
No, the all-time leading rusher? No, he was 1 season short of sweetness. He would have only needed about 1,500 or not even that many yards. That's why everybody was like, wait, what?
Why am I thinking that he was the all-time leading? Well, regardless, Emmitt Smith's now the NFL's all-time leading rusher. Sanders is still in the top 5 all-time.
Mm-hmm.
No,
And Sanders played minimum at least 3 or 4 seasons fewer than anybody else in the top 5. Sanders walked away in the prime of his career. It is almost embarrassing to think what Barry could have done if he'd have stuck around for a few years. But he decided to get while the getting was good, Michael style.
Or in the case of Detroit, get while the getting was bad.
Oh, yeah, there's that too. I mean, Megatron basically did the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
He retired early too. He was like, "Nah, I'm sick of this shit. I'm out."
Exactly. Everybody in the shadow of Bobby Lane, the one key player who could lead Detroit to a championship, even if it was 1957.
All right, so we're going to go to the Lions defensively here, and I think you all know where I have to start here, because when I saw this pick, I was like, what the? Bisco?
Yes. Yeah, so I'm going to go more modern, and I'm going to go with a very controversial pick, I guess you could say. But, I mean, he is really the only big-name Lions defensive player in, especially in recent memory, but, even going further back, the Lions haven't really had many big name top defensive guys. So I'm going to go with Ndamukong Suh. Yes, he had a very rocky career with the Lions, but he helped that defense immensely even when they were terrible.
I'm like 90% sure Ndamukong Suh kicked Brandon in the head to get him to select him.
I mean, as someone who is a little bit of a historian, and as someone who has admittedly watched various programming, including full games and episodes of This Week in Pro Football from the 60s and 70s, hate to admit this, but he's not entirely wrong. He's not.
I have a name selected here. I don't know if I announced it in the group chat, but I have a name selected that I'm going to wait and go last for because I'm curious to get your guys' reactions to. Erik, who do you have for your Detroit Lions defensive player?
I mean, for this one, I really couldn't, as much as I was trying to veer away from Sue, going back to way, way back in the day. I legit could not find anybody.
See?
Pretty much. Yes, this is what I'm saying. Going back, it's like 90s, 80s, 70s, 60s. Hell, you can barely find anybody on that 57 team.
Mm-hmm.
I'm highly disappointed in you, Erik. Are you picking Ndamukong?
Like I said, Bisco had a point for this one. I didn't want to give it to him. I tried, but it's like... Yeah, I can see it.
Jason?
Unfortunately, I actually am a historian of NFL, and I'm going to go back to a feared lineman out of the University of Pittsburgh that was enshrined in Canton in, I think he was put in 73. Yes, he was in the class of 73. He not only was a all-pro 10 years straight, but a superb field leader, elected to the Pro Bowl 10 straight years, 55 through 64. Team captain 9 years, Lions MVP for four times, and that is the lovely linebacker out of the great state. Oh, wait. No, not the great state of Pittsburgh. And Pennsylvania. Eat shit, Pitt. But I'm still going to go with Joe Schmidt. 6 foot, 220 pounds. All-American who not only anchored that defense, also went on to coach the Lions 2 years after retiring from the NFL.
I don't know. I wouldn't even say he was more feared, especially back then, because you had guys like for the Packers, who I will be discussing later on, And lest we forget, that was also pretty much the peak of the Monsters of the Midway in Chicago.
Mhm.
Hey, while I'm not diminishing his stat, if you're looking at the black and blue division, he was deep on those depth charts.
All right.
But we're not going by division. We're going by team.
I know we're going by team, and I'm saying, yes, for the team, I could even argue that even with his reputation within the team, yes, I could go Joe Schmidt. But even with the greater reputation, even though he did stomp on a couple people, Sue was like, okay, get me the hell away from that guy. For Joe Schmidt, it was like, okay, this is another one we have.
The honorable mention I have is a name that we all should know.
Don't say your name yet, because it might be mine, because mine's actually a more recent player.
No, this is not a recent player. He went. Is yours from?
Mine's from the 90s, a 6-time Pro Bowler,
No.
4-time playoff participant. Led the team in tackles from the linebacker position 4 years.
No, this is a my honorable mention is an enshrinement class of 2010, who is going to be a name that we all should recognize, who played cornerback for the Lions. That's Mr. Dick LeBeau.
Oh, come on! I saw those games where Dick LeBeau played. Even when he was there and ever present, those teams were crap. Lest we forget the 77 team that he was on, and he intercepted Burt Jones playing against Baltimore. Yes, they nearly cost Baltimore the division and a playoff spot, but they managed finishing, 6-8? Sweet Jesus H. Christ.
I love getting Erik riled up.
Oh,
You do have him pretty fired up. I'm curious to see how he responds to my pick. You ready, Erik?
I am so glad that I had rum tonight. Go ahead, Erik.
It is not a secret that I hate Ohio State, but I cannot deny the motor that this man had. He was Mr. Lions defense for those 90s teams. My pick for Detroit is Chris Spielman.
Not as fired up, but again, you're talking outside of the days to where Rodney Peete and Eric Kramer were leading them to playoff appearances. Mediocre-ish.
Let's just all agree that the Lions have never really had that great of a defense.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of teams that don't really have any major defensive standouts, we might as well move to Minnesota next.
Which is ironic because they had a great defense in terms of overall, in terms of the system.
There is a potential all-time NFL defensive player on that team right now in Danielle Hunter.
Yeah.
However, I think we can all agree that he does not have enough experience for him to be on our greatest of all teams.
No.
Let's start offensively in Minnesota because that's the obvious place to start. I know me and Erik agree on this one. I don't remember who Brandon and Jason chose, so I'll start with Jason.
For Minnesota,
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking AP. I mean, one of the greatest running backs to ever play.
Yeah.
Bisco?
I have to agree with Jason AP.
See, me and Erik go back into the 70s.
And 60s, actually.
And the franchise's Super Bowl years.
18.
And the starting quarterback for those Super Bowl years in Fran Tarkenton.
I was just about to say, are you taking Tarkenton?
Yep. The Mad Scrambler Tarkenton. And shame on the two of you as Giants fans because you had him throughout the end of the 60s and early 70s. And he was the one throughout that incredible playoff drought that got you the closest to that division title in the, I think that year was the Capital Division in 70 when you went 9-5.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my question here. We have a split down the middle here. What would be the tiebreaker?
Ooh.
I mean, if you're looking at success franchise-wise, it has to be Tarkleton because of the fact that he had multiple Super Bowl appearances, whereas Peterson never led his team to the Super Bowl.
I
think Peterson has an NFC Championship game, but I know he doesn't have a Super Bowl.
No.
I will say this, though. If you were looking at both eras that Tarkenton played, you had star quarterbacks, but it was not necessarily a real quarterback passing heavy league. He went ahead and was one of those game changers, especially in his second stint in Minnesota through the 70s, to where you had to plan for. With Adrian Peterson, yes, he was a very dominant talent, but you didn't see too many teams really having to game plan for him.
Yeah, they did.
I feel like we're gonna have to put this to a vote for non-show members.
I think the W2M chat should break the tie.
That's fine with me. We can announce the winner next week on the show.
That works.
Sounds good.
I think because I think we have enough football enthusiasts in that chat with Sean, Robert, and everybody else that I think we could get a fair decision out of that, and I think any tiebreak should be done through the W2M chat.
And that's fine. And we'll bring the results from the chat onto the show next week. That works for me. All right, let's go to Minnesota defensively. I thought about this one for a while because there is really no standout great defensive player in Minnesota's history, but there is a pretty good one that I found. Was a multi-time Pro Bowler in the 90s as well.
Mine actually changed. I forgot this. For some reason, mine, I had somebody picked, and because the person that I'm actually choosing completely slipped my mind until today.
I'm going with somebody who played 11 years in the NFL, 8 of them in Minnesota, the final 3 in Seattle. I'm going with John Randall.
He played 10 years with the Vikings, and that is also my pick.
I thought it was 9 in Minnesota and then 3 in Seattle.
He played 90 to 2000 in Minnesota.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
He had 10 years. And a cool thing about him that I just learned while researching this today, he is one of the few undrafted free agents to ever be elected to the Hall of Fame.
So me and Jason are both on with John Randall. Erik, who you got?
9-time Pro Bowler, NFL MVP, and arguably the anchor of the Purple People Eaters defensive line in the 70s, whom all 4 were once elected to the same Pro Bowl. One Alan Page.
Okay. Good pick.
Yeah, I mean...
That Purple People Eater defense is one that people still talk about today as one amongst the all-time greats. The Steel Curtain in Pittsburgh, the Green Bay defenses back in the 60s when Starr was running the show there that led them to back-to-back Super Bowls at the start of the Super Bowl era.
He was actually the first defensive player to ever win the MVP award in 1971. So that's a solid pick, Erik.
Bisco, who you got?
I'm going with Jason's original pick, 5-time Pro Bowler, 4-time first-team All-Pro, 2-time sack leader, NFL record 4 career safeties, 1 Jared Allen.
And that was my original pick, and I think that deserves an honorable mention.
I mean, But given the fact of our official votes here, I think we can all agree that it goes to John Randall.
Yeah, since it's 2-1. Yeah, 2-1. Yeah.
Due to the multiple votes for Randall.
Yep.
Okay, so we have Barry Sanders.
Ndamukong Suh.
Ndamukong Suh, which is going to irk me, but fine. We have the vote to be decided between Adrian Peterson and Fran Tarkington. And then we have John Randall so far for Minnesota. Let's save Green Bay for last, as they're probably the marquee program from this division.
And it will spark a debate.
And let's instead go to Chicago right now. I believe offensively, this was unanimous. It's Walter Payton.
Yep.
Sweetness all the way. You got to be special to not have just one, but two different awards named after you.
I'm going to throw out an honorable mention to Brian Piccolo.
I'm going to say my honorable mention is going to be Sayers.
Same. I got to go with Sayers. Hashtag 18 inches of daylight. And that man meant it.
I mean, I think that the Peyton Sayers debate, I mean, everybody's going to lean Peyton, but Gale Sayers he was a phenomenal, pure athlete. So I think that one. I mean, you can't deny Walter Payton, but I mean, you have to throw Sayers' name in there just for discussion purposes.
I think the problem. I'm sorry, Eric, but real quick here. I think the problem for Sayers is the fact that he played in an era where maybe football wasn't as popular as it was in the Walter Payton era.
Mm-hmm. And I will put out one other honorable mention. I don't know if you'd really count him as an offensive player or, his main role was in special teams. But to probably the most dominant returner of all time, one Devin Hester.
From?
What?
From?
Well,
is he from the U?
Where do you think?
Is he from the U?
Yes, he is.
Of course he is.
If Eric's asking, where do you think?
Yes.
All right.
I think this one's going to spark the most debate, and I think this is possibly could go in a four-way tie.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting.
This one's going to be a fun conversation right here. I'll go first because we kind of talked about this one a little bit here. So let me get my statistics in front of me here because I want to make sure that I have them. 1,353 tackles over the course of 182 games played. That is an average of about 9 tackles for every game he played in. 41.5 sacks, 22 interceptions with 2 of them taken back to the house, 12 forced fumbles. To me, the ultimate Chicago Bear defender is Brian Urlacher, the man who revolutionized the Chicago defense in the 2000s.
And that is a name that should be mentioned in the conversation. And I will go next. Who with a name that brings chills to opponents just by mentioning his name. And he had one of the most badass names in football when he played for the Bears. And that is Mr. Dick Butkus.
Yes.
He was the epitome of the Iron Man football player. He rarely came out of games. He inflicted pain on anyone that he happened to meet in the open field. Without mentioning Dick Butkus in a Bears defensive conversation is a travesty.
I will completely agree that he's in the conversation. 100%. I agree. But I think as a more modern fan, such as myself, and since a lot of this is towards more modern fans, a lot of them are going to side with Urlacher because Urlacher is of their generation.
Mm-hmm.
Bisco?
Yeah, my guy, 29 and a half sacks in his career, 138 games, 3 touchdowns for himself. Both a NFL and WWE Hall of Famer.
Yeah, that's who I thought you were going
One
with.
Refrigerator Perry.
William the Refrigerator Perry.
Yep.
Erik, I feel like you're about to break this tie, and I think if I recall correctly in the group chat, you already did.
Okay. 1960s All-Decade Team, 1970s All-Decade Team,
Yep.
75th Anniversary and 100th Anniversary All-Time Team, 8-time Pro Bowler, 6-time All-Pro on the first team, 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, Dick Butkus. If you're talking about the monsters of the Midway, even when you look to the modern generation of fans who rightfully, very rightfully, mention Brian Urlacher, without Butkus, no Singletary, no Urlacher. The man started the chain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's actually somebody else that I don't think we talked about that deserves more credit too, and was probably the catalyst on that '85 defense that was so dominant in Mike Singletary.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was going to say, how funny is it that out of us four, that we left off 2 predominant defensive players for the Bears and Dent and Singletary in this conversation?
Well, that just shows
not discrediting them.
Yeah.
I think Richard Dent was overshadowed. Well, I think Richard Dent was overshadowed by William Perry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Well,
being on the same line.
According to Bleacher Report, you want to know who the number 2 defensive all-time greatest defensive player on the Bears currently sets, according to Bleacher Report?
Bleacher Report actually did this gimmick. These sons of bitches.
They did sporadic. This is old. I think this is from 2011. So we're not doing gimmick infringement. But you don't want to know, you want to get a good laugh at who their number 2 is? This is a name that Harry and Brandon will be quite familiar with. Want to take a stab at it?
No idea.
Yeah, nothing's coming to mind.
I'll hold up a hand signal, and you.
Mongo, really?
Really?
He is the number 2 rated.
Really, Mongo?
Those people are on
Mongo Michael is the number 2.
That's like saying Bill Goldberg was one of the best Falcons.
And you want to know what's funny? You want to know who's absent from the list?
Refrigerator?
Yep.
What?
Wow.
Yes, Refrigerator Perry is absent from the Bleacher Report list.
Oh my god.
So I am now officially putting no credibility.
Yeah, really.
List.
But I'm going to tell you something right now, and thanks to John Gruden, we might be adding another name to that by the time his career ends, and that is Khalil Mack.
Yeah.
Easily.
If Khalil Mack continues producing at the pace Khalil Mack is producing at currently, I think that even our pick, because with 2 votes for Butkus, he ends up taking the award here. But if Mack can continue contributing at the pace that he has been contributing at for these last 2 seasons in Chicago, there is no doubt in my mind that he'll go down as one of, if not the greatest Bear defensive player of all time.
Mm-hmm.
At the very least, he's already proven that the chain continues.
It just shows, it just shows how dominant the Bears defense has been throughout the years, considering how much of a history we just talked about the monsters of the Midway, Butkus, Fridge, you had Urlacher in more modern times, now you have Khalil Mack. Throughout the generations, they've always been able to get a dominant defense.
They've always had a dominant defensive player.
Well, yes.
They haven't really had a dominant offensive player ever since ever since Peyton retired back in the mid-'80s. But
whatever. I mean, did we not? Can we not talk about the greatest quarterback of the '85 Bears in this conversation?
No, sit down, Jim McMahon. Nobody cares about you.
Look, you lost credibility when you called Doug Flutie America's midget, okay? Yeah, just sit on down. You're just a foot shorter, bespectacled Jack Concannon, okay? So,
and I want to throw this out there. Just to go with the refrigerator Perry thing. I think he wins honorable mention strictly because of his role in the Super Bowl Shuffle.
Yeah.
The one person we did forget, Smoking Jay. Nah, never mind.
No.
He was too lazy and unmotivated to even be married to a reality TV star. So what does that tell you?
Okay, real quick here. I do have one quick question here. Let's wait until after Green Bay because it kind of ties into the division as a whole.
Okay.
Green Bay offensively is going to be fun because I think we talked about this in the group chat and we agreed it comes down to two people, but it's another generational battle. I'm going to go back and kick it old school here, and I believe Erik agreed with me.
I agree with you as well.
157 games as a starter with an all-time record of 94, 57, and 6. 24,718 passing yards in a time where the NFL was not all about throwing the ball.
At all.
Nope.
At all.
152 touchdown passes, but admittedly 138 interceptions, which is a little high. But the other person in this discussion has numbers that are just about the same when you think about it.
More so in some cases.
Yeah.
Because if I'm not mistaken, until he was just recently passed for the all-time touchdown record, didn't he hold the record for most touchdowns and most interceptions all time?
Yeah, he held both of them.
And he still has the interception record because that hasn't been broken.
If Jameis Winston was still starting, he might have a chance to.
I mean, he's in New Orleans, so...
Jameis Winston's going to have to play another decade to even come close, though.
True.
My pick for the greatest offensive Packer of all time, with honorable mention to number 4, is Bart Starr.
See, this is where we differ. I've got to go with the biggest mistake the Atlanta Falcons ever made, who landed a 11-time Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champ, 3-time first team, 3-time NFL Most Valuable Players, Sportsman of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, 4-time NFL passing touchdown leader. 2-time passing yard leader. His number's retired. He's not only in the football, he's going to be enshrined in Canton as well as the Packers Hall of Fame. The quarterback from the 100th anniversary all-time team and the Southern Miss Golden Eagles number 4 retired his number, and that is Brett Favre.
I can't entirely blame that on the Falcons. Brett Favre, he clashed with Jerry Glanville. He wanted out. I mean, he was going to have time and especially since they were going through changes in the 90s, he was going to get a chance to step up and play, but he was too much of a malcontent. And yes, ESPN even did an episode, 5 reasons you can't blame the Atlanta Falcons for trading him to Green Bay. That was all him. So, Falcons fans, I'm on your side on that one. Just this once, but I got you.
Brandon with the Rona.
Me and Erik are both with Bart Starr here. Bisco, I'm pretty sure your team Bart Starr as well.
Yes, I am. I definitely have to give an honorable mention to Brett Favre. You know, I'm sure I don't know who my dad would pick out of those two.
I was going to say, I thought he was going to say, I don't know who my dad is. I was like, Well, that took a dark turn.
I'm about to say, can we get a road trip or get a flight up to Connecticut to be on an episode of Maury?
But
you are not the father.
But yeah, I mean, obviously Brett Favre was the quarterback I watched as a kid. My dad being a big Packer fan and everything in the '90s. But you know, without what?
Your dad's just Mr. Wisconsin, isn't he?
Well, he grew up in Wisconsin, so
my condolences.
But yeah, Bart Starr. Without those teams, Bart Starr, Vince Lombardi. You know, the Super Bowl trophy is named after Lombardi. Without those teams and without the impact that they had in the first couple of Super Bowls, I don't know if, you know, we'd be where we are with the NFL. So not only in terms of numbers, but also in terms of the impact that he had and the Packers teams of that era had in the for the NFL, you gotta go with Bart Starr. Obviously, big honorable mention to Brett Favre, basically 1A and 1B, but yeah, I have to give it to Bart Starr.
With Favre being 1A, of course.
I don't know. I mean,
no, he's 1B.
Lest we forget, the reason why Lombardi has all those championships and only lost one, look at who he faced in that 1960 NFL championship game with Chuck Bednarik and Norm Van Brockman in Philadelphia. You don't have Bart Starr on all those teams, even right before the Super Bowl era, going up against guys like Otto Graham and Jim Brown and Johnny Unitas. Sorry, we don't have that dynasty. You can only go to the deep, darkest depths of Dave Damashek's mind to play what if in that case. You don't have it. I'm sorry. I got to give the nod to Starr over Favre for that one.
I would argue that it's closer for Favre and Starr than it would be for Sanders and Megatron.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. This is probably one of the closest 1-2 battles that we will have out of any of these.
Because as good as Calvin Megatron Johnson was, he did not have nearly the overall success that Sanders did as the running back in Detroit. Sanders had 4 playoff appearances. I think Calvin Johnson had 1.
That's the one.
Yep.
Which is unfortunate that a man of his talents was only able to see the postseason one time, because let's be honest, I think we can all agree here, Calvin Johnson and Barry Sanders are probably 1A and 1B for best players to not have a Super Bowl ring.
Dan Marino.
Yeah, Marino kind of blows them out of the water.
Yeah,
I would take Sanders over Marino.
And we would drug test you.
Yes.
We have blasphemy in our midst. A heretic, I say.
If we had to pick one player to start an NFL franchise and I had the option between Sanders and Marino, I would take Sanders.
I'd take Marino easily.
Yeah.
Depending on what era we're starting. If we're starting in the 80s, I would take Sanders.
Yeah.
Starting today,
Marino.
I would take Marino.
You got to think that their careers were pretty parallel, except for the fact that Marino played a few years after Barry retired.
Not to mention, bro, Marino only got a teeny bit of a head start. And I'm sorry, who in 1991 signed at the time the richest contract in NFL history? So much so that moment was quoted in a Drake song. Who was that?
Who is a part owner of an NFL team currently?
Sanders owns part of the Lions?
No. Doesn't Marino have stake?
Yeah, he has stake, and he was, while he was working at CBS and kind of like early in the middle days, offered a very high-profile Dolphins job that he had for like 10 minutes.
All right, let's move over to defense here. And this is, I think, going to spark a little bit of a debate, although After reading the name that you guys mentioned, I think I may have erred in my ways.
I thought this was a unanimous.
Yeah, I think I may have erred in my ways because my original pick for this discussion was linebacker Clay Matthews.
Yeah. I'll take the lead on this one for us, guys. I'm going to take the biggest free agent circus that occurred when he left Philadelphia, and that would be the Reverend Reggie White for 1,000.
No, who was the Minister of Defense?
Mm-hmm. I was waiting for somebody to use the actual nickname, the Minister of Defense.
Yep.
Not to mention, we're completely ignoring his USFL career for Birmingham.
Yeah, I'm going to admit that Reggie White completely slipped my mind when we had this discussion originally, and if he hadn't have, this would have been unanimous.
Well, a lot of people don't really when they think Reggie White, they think of his Philadelphia days over his Green Bay days.
Maybe
that's what throws people off on him, and because I was talking to one of my really good friends, and we was talking about Reggie White, and he kept talking about his Eagles days, and I was like, yeah, but that wasn't his best days in the NFL. I said, and then he was like, "Oh yeah, he signed with the Packers." I remember the Sports Illustrated cover having him standing there, and you opened it up, and it had a sheet of it had a sheet of 32, the 32 teams. Well, wasn't 32. It had all the team jerseys on the inside in a leaflet that you could just put like paper jerseys on, trying to guess where he was going to sign, and they had like some kind of contest for it.
God! And even in those, because that was early, like our expansion year in Jacksonville, and one of the Sunday night games on TNT, and it was just like looking at that even now, 25 years later, I'm like, we were lambs to the slaughter that night. That was just not fair.
I think it's because of a combination of, I'm younger than you guys, and also the fact that, I was originally a Packer fan as a kid. I automatically think of him as a Packer. I don't even, think of him as an Eagle.
And it was the Memphis Showboats, Erik.
Thank you, because I could have sworn it was one of those teams. For my mind, I thought it was Birmingham, but thank you for correcting me. It was Memphis.
Yeah. And I'm going to throw this out there, and I just learned something I did not know. Did you know he played a year for the Panthers?
Was that at the end of his career?
Would have had to have been.
Yeah, I remember. I do remember that.
He left in '98 at Green Bay, took 2 years off, and played the 2000 season for the Panthers.
Yeah, I remember that now.
He was probably the best player on that Panther defense anyway.
Yeah, he was.
And he appeared in 2 professional wrestling events.
Yeah, wasn't he in... Was that in WCW?
He was in WCW a couple of times, I think.
He was in WCW once, but his first one was part of LT's.
Oh,
LT,
right.
WrestleMania 11.
Right.
Yes. And he wrestled. I did not know this. He wrestled only one match. Does anyone want to guess who it was against?
I want to say Tatanka.
Nope. It was in WCW.
Was it against Mongo?
That is correct.
I remember that now. Wasn't that in like 96?
97.
97. Okay, I knew it was one or the other. Yeah.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, they had like a whole Packers versus Bears rivalry like thing. Yeah, I remember that.
It was pretty funny. So just to recap us, Harry, who we got one tie break only. Is that correct?
Yep.
The only tiebreaker we have is Adrian Peterson or Fran Tarkenton from the Minnesota Vikings. Overall, it's going to be Barry Sanders and Ndamukong Suh. I'm visibly rolling my eyes at this for the people listening at home. For the Detroit Lions, John Randall on defense for Minnesota.
Do you mean
Walter
offense?
John
Oh, wait.
Randall,
Oh, no, you're right. Okay, sorry.
Walter Payton for offense for Chicago. Dick Butkus, which is appropriate because you were kissing yours goodbye if you were facing him.
Yeah, because, I mean, let's face it. I want to say it was like the mid-50s for L.A. The one dude died on the field after a butt kiss hit.
I could see that.
Mm-hmm.
No, he's not. He's legit. That happened.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm saying. I could see that.
And then Bart Starr for the Packers on offense, which Jason is basically rolling his eyes at.
Boo.
The Minister of Defense, Reggie White, on defense. All right, let's wrap this up with one more that I'm going to throw at you as a curveball live here on the show. If you had to pick one, is it Papa Bear? Is it Lombardi? Who would you want as your coach?
Lombardi.
We're going to put a seal here. We're going to put a seal here. Oh, God. Anybody who can go into like 8 hours talking about the intricacies of blocking on one play, Lombardi.
I would have loved to have seen like what Papa Bear Hollis could have done in the current situation.
Oh, lest we forget, the team that gave Hollis his biggest defeat ever as coach of the Bears. You would never guess.
No. I wouldn't.
Anybody?
Cleveland.
No.
Detroit?
No. Robert Taylor, you're welcome.
Oh.
The Kansas City Chiefs.
How dare you speak his name?
66-23. And that was after the Bears had won the championship in 63. Kansas City was like, we'll play you. It's all right. Bam. Took them to the shed.
All right, so
that's going to wrap up the NFC North. We are going to take this conversation once we have a winner for the Minnesota Vikings on offense. We will take this conversation to the Facebook page for the Kickoff once that gets established here. And we want to get your guys' thoughts on who you think is the best defensive player on offensive player of all time out of the teams that are currently located in the NFC North. We'll have the AFC North next week. That will be Baltimore, Ravens only. Cleveland stays in Cleveland. The Colts are part of Indianapolis.
Mm-hmm.
Cleveland, both pre-move and post. Although I think we can all agree that that's going to come pre-move.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that one's pretty much unanimous offense.
I would have to think so. I mean, it's the man the team's named for. I don't think it's that hard of a concept to figure out.
No, isn't it different? Yeah. You had the right idea, but no.
Well, I know that he was one of the main people behind Cincinnati as well.
Yes, but he was the main person behind Cincinnati, but...
Well, if they're not named for him, they should be.
Oh, have we set a rule? I think you mentioned this last week, but we can't use Can we use the same player for multiple teams?
No.
No.
You have to pick a different player, which means Reggie White cannot
be
your
used for
Philadelphia
Philly.
defender.
That's why I was asking.
Erik, I think I might know which way you're leaning on Philadelphia defender now, since you mentioned him specifically by name during this episode. We'll see if I'm right when we get to Philadelphia once we head to the NFC East in 2 weeks.
Okay.
But Speaking of which, 2 weeks we come back with the NFC East. After that will be the AFC East, and then we will pause at the 4-week mark and give you guys our sports updates. The show that Erik was discussing where we talk about new rules for potential livening up of professional sports. Yes! As well as the fallout to everything COVID-19 related, like Brandon was discussing a couple of weeks as well. In addition, we'll talk to you guys. Hopefully we can get some conversation going with you guys as well. Maybe we'll do an episode of Ask the Kickoff down the road too. But for now, your focus going forward for the next 3 weeks will be the AFC North, the NFC East, the AFC East, and then the 4th week will be the pause in the middle for new rules and sports update. Jason, where can people find you?
Oh, you can find me. Hit me up on Twitter at Turkeyglue822. Any fantasy football related question, or just shoot the breeze concerning any fantasy football question or NFL question. Hit me up. Love to talk. I'm becoming more social with my Twitter, so follow, shoot me a message. Any questions? Hell, if you want, anybody got Madden 20? Shoot me a message. Add me to Twitter. Shoot me a message. Maybe we can get on and I can kick your ass at Madden. It doesn't matter. So at Turkeyglue822 on Twitter.
Bisco, where can people find you online?
They can find me online at Bisco NMB Chiefs. And if you want to go find me on Facebook, just look up my name and you'll be able to find me.
Erik, where can people find you online?
Since I'm no longer allowed to mention the betting process, Harry, you can find me on Twitter at Squid Sportshead. You can also find me on Facebook. Look for Erik Watkins. Again, if you don't see the cartoon man in the Jaguars merch holding the wine, you've got the wrong guy. And you can also find me on various shows throughout our fine network, as indeed, as promised, Soccer to the Max has made its long-awaited return.
In addition, you can talk to Erik about finding more information about his dark pages by messaging him at Squid Sportshead.
Slide into my DMs. You can, like I said, go through the vetting process, and if there is enough conversation, I can probably stimulate an After Dark version of Ask the Kickoff. Just be warned.
Folks, you don't want that, especially if we want a sponsor. I'm just saying.
That's why I said specifically After Dark. It can get a different sponsor. I've got some ideas.
We're going to end up on many vids. I can see it now. You can find me online at HEB the Eagle on Twitter and Instagram. I admit I barely use both of those, but regardless, I'm Harry Broadhurst on Facebook. You'll look for the picture of me and my girlfriend. I believe it's the one that was taken on the campus of Penn State University. I'd have to check the picture and make sure of that, but I believe so, when I went up to visit the Penn State Hall of Fame up there. But that's the best way to get a hold of me. Send me a message. Feel free to talk sports, talk wrestling, talk whatever you want to. I'm always available. Just shoot me a message online. So for the I still want to call him the chairman, but I can't. Well, I guess technically he's more of a chairman now than he ever was.
That is correct. I'm the L.A. Parker.
Isn't he the one that died?
Yes, I'm assuming the mantle.
You're picking up where he left off. Rest in peace, Junior. Anyway, for the not-so-silent owner, Jason Teasley, the Squid, Erik Watkins, and, damn it, Bisco, Brandon
the garden gnome, Brandon Bisco.
If you see his picture on Facebook, you'll understand what we're talking about. He seriously does look like the Travelocity gnome. I'm kidding.
Hey, we need to come to you to get great deals.
all I'm going to say, I think he looks like the Dollar Tree version of Brawny.
It's better than the Grizzly Redwood reference off there, though. I'll just say that much.
Yeah.
For Bisco and his Star Wars jammies, I'm Harry Broadhurst. Thanking you for listening to this episode of The Kickoff as we gave you our greatest of all teams, NFC North. We'll see you guys next week for our greatest of all teams, AFC North. We are a presentation of the W2M Network, which is online at W2Mnet.com. In addition, you can find us on all of your favorite podcast listening services, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spreaker, Podbean, CastBox. Hey, Brandon, guess what?
Spotify is here.
And Travelocity has deals for you. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you next week here on The Kickoff, a presentation of the W2M Network.